You know, it's not about who's the quickest, so it's just about survival. As long as you keep consistent lap times, you should be able to keep up. Fantastic stuff here at Targa, Virginia. We've only had 2 corners and Matthew Labby has got his mind and his eyes set on the prize. He's just going flat out right now, nothing's holding him back. No one can catch him for that matter. The number 34, as you see then. Here's a bit of spurt. Oh, he's gone off. Oh, he's clipped the barrier. And that's going to be a huge impact there for Zachary Ribbard. I'm not sure if he's going to keep it going. And Larry just got that human car relationship absolutely sorted. There's no fight from the start. He's just been dancing it round for 74 laps. Matthew Labby will take victory at the Targa, Virginia, one of the longest races, and he's won it. Fantastic job there, hats off. Cannot applaud this man enough. He's done a great job and a very well deserved victory there by your race winner. Absolutely brilliant.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural broadcast of the Targa Long Pond 120 here at Pocono Raceway International. Hi, I'm your host tonight, Richard Losper. With me in the booth we have Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Richard, looking forward to this.
And we also have Ayrton Ellis. Hi, Ayrton.
Hey, Richard, great to be here.
Also in the booth with us tonight we have Stefan Overgaard and guest commentators Rudy Cummings and Sean Ambrose. And pushing the buttons behind the scenes is our director, Giancarlo Lenzi. Now, guys, we are already on the pace lap, so we will not have too much to say before the race starts. So we will be getting ready as they are already now on the oval section, heading towards the start-finish once they get through the chicane there. Kevin, a quick note about the track configuration?
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. So this is the international layout of Pocono Raceway. This is a 2.5-mile road course that uses the Roval. It's got 10 turns and a super bumpy and tight infield, and then a chicane on the long back straight. So there's going to be a lot of high-speed action and a lot of low-speed action, and with 3 classes here today, these guys are going to be mixing it up pretty heavily.
Thanks, Kevin. Ayrton, we've got 3 classes running here today. Tell us a quick little bit about each class.
Yep, we have in the C1 class, we have the Corvette, which will be running near mostly in the front, and behind them will be the Ford GT, which is the C2 class, and then the third class is C3, which is the Ford Mustangs. And the Corvette and Ford GT both have about 70% of fuel, and the Mustang has about 50% of fuel. So these guys are going to have to make quite a few pit stops this race.
All right, thank you, Ayrton. Well, we're on the final stretch towards the start-finish line now. We have a quick grid readout there in the GT1 class, or the C1 class. Noya Nagai is the leader there, and followed by Satoru Onu and Richard Skoterin in third place. Stefan, what about the C2 class?
Yeah, in the first position there we have Rupert Turkila, and on the second place Amjad Yaman, and then Valerio Chiatti in third, and the green is now on.
And the green flag has flown, and away they go. We have Noya Nagai leading them off. He's followed by Satoru as we speak. So at this point in time, they enter the first turn, and the other classes have yet to start their race, or have they started, Stefan?
Yeah, they did a bit of delayed start, but they are also on the way now.
Thank you. And how about our third class, Ayrton, the Mustang class? Have they fired off yet?
Yeah, the Ford Mustangs have all fired off right behind the Ford GT class, and they're all single file at the moment.
All right, so this we're in here for a very, very long race, guys, 2 hours. And the classes, the C1 class, obviously the fastest class, which is the Corvette. And we'll expect these guys to be lapping the Mustangs inside of how many laps do you think, Ayrton?
Well, it is a 2-hour race, and lap times seem to be about a minute and a half average with all the cars. So we've got quite a lot of laps to do.
Yes, and of course there's some, we do have some fuel situations right here. So Kevin, you want to tell us about that?
Right, so it looks like all of these cars are going to be looking at about a two-stop strategy, 3 stints. They're going to be cutting it close. We've been hearing a little bit of traffic from the Rupe Turkala, who's the lead in the Ford GT class, that the Ford GTs may actually have to worry about fuel conservation, but I don't think that will be an issue for the Mustangs or the Corvettes today.
Yeah, and it's all seems to be very respectable in the opening lap here, as they're now on lap 2. And we still have the order with Noya Nagai and Satoru Ono leading the C1 class. Stefan, you seeing anything in the C2 class?
No, they're pretty well behaving so far. People looks like to be feeling each other out. No hazardous attempt, and it's also a 2-hour race, so that's understandable.
All right. Okay, and Eden, how about the third class, which is the slowest class of the 3 here, with the Mustangs?
Yeah, the C3 class actually has a fewest amount of drivers, only 6 drivers, but at the moment there are the top 4 of them are all very close together. JD Baumgartner is leading them with Oscar Salin and Dan Rash right behind.
Okay. All right,
And Richard, we do have some action.
A lot happening at this point in time. Kevin, did you say something?
Yeah, we do have a little bit of some action going on right now. The C2 field, led by Rupe Turkala, followed by Amjad Yaman, have caught up to the trailing Corvette of Steve Barsby, and are actually getting hung out a little bit to dry in the slow sections, where it seems like Steve may be struggling a little bit with the Corvette, and that has allowed Amjad Yaman to actually catch up to Rupe right now.
Yeah, I'm watching that now. Amjad Yaman is in a beautiful green and white car on my screen here. Hopefully I've got his paint scheme updated. And he is actually catching Rupe, who's right on the bumper now of Steve Barsby there. So is there something wrong with that car, or is Steve Barsby perhaps just a slower driver?
Yeah, it looks to me like Steve might be a little bit off the pace compared to Rupe, and he's let Rupe go by in that hairpin. It looks like he's going to allow Amjad as well, maybe, to get by, and perhaps no, he's didn't really help Amjad out too much. And now we're going to see that Corvette. He's really going to be able to get on the power and make life difficult for these Ford GTs as they approach the chicane. And you can see right now how much the interplay of traffic is really going to cause problems, as that has allowed Rupe to get a huge gap over Amjad in just the space of 1 corner.
And I noticed that Steve Barsby has applied some braking there and allowed Amjad to pass by. So you're quite right there, Kevin. He's obviously way off the pace at this point in time, even though he's got this car that can really put the power down on the oval section.
In the the C3 class is actually started to split up. Dan Rash made a mistake coming out of the bus stop last lap and almost hit the wall, letting Randolph Chinoth by. So Oscar Salin and JD Baumgartner have managed to create quite a large gap, and I think they've broken the draft by now.
Steve Barsby is now entering the pit, so whatever issues he has, Richard, he is coming down on pit road now.
Thank you, Rudy. Keep an eye out on Steve and see if he remains in the pit or if he's going to get some repairs or what happened. I don't believe we had any accidents, so it's unusual for somebody to be stopping this early in the race, Kevin.
Yeah, you kind of said it right there, Richard. I'm not quite sure why he's in pit lane if he's, hasn't run into anything yet.
Actually, it's the race controller who asked Steve to get off the track because he was unsafe with other drivers, it seems.
All right. So it seems he might just be that far off the pace that he can't be in a competitive situation and might cause some problems for some other guys. That's the information we've got. So thank you for that, Stefan. Now, guys, we have Sean Ambrose and Rudy Cummings who are guest commentating for us and spotting as well. Sean, your impressions of this race so far?
Yeah, impression's pretty good. It seems to be spreading out real quickly. Everybody looks to be taking their time and taking care of their equipment. Of course, we've talked about it being a 2-hour event, and that's going to be key. I do like the battle that's going on for the lead in the C3 class right now. Solon is giving Baumgartner all he can take. It seems to be right on his tail and close to making a move on him here any lap now.
Okay, thank you for that, Sean. Now, Rudy, you've been watching the start, obviously, and having a look at what's going down. What are your impressions thus far?
You know, I've yet to see the Corvettes run, and I'm really seeing a lot of muscle by these Corvettes. Very well handling par, and these guys really seem to be taken to this the chicanes and stuff very well, and also the tight bus stop here on the backstretch. Man, I'm telling you, they're really coming around that very well.
Well, I'm getting information that the faster cars are starting to lap the slower cars already. Kevin, what are you seeing there?
Well, actually, Richard, there was just a little bit of action right now. Last lap on turn 1, Valerio Chieti actually got wide on the exit of turn 1 and spun back across the track in front of Jonathan Fuller before they contacted. And that was a big hit on Valerio right there. And I'm not sure that either one of those drivers are going to have their cars okay.
Yeah, I'm noticing that the slowest of the Mustang drivers, Jimmy Eifling, Eden, he's fallen back significantly, and in fact been already lapped.
Yeah, I mean, all the Corvettes are lapping these Mustangs, and both leaders have actually been having a lot of troubles. And now J.D. Baumgartner goes off in the C3 class, and also the driver of Richard Shorterman, who was in 3rd place, has gone off track while trying to avoid the slower C3 class.
Yeah, it looks like this might be a feature of this race where the interclass passing might become a problem, as we've seen in other series that we've covered. But just looking back to the front there in the C1 class, Stefan, just give us a rundown of the leaders in that class there.
Well, up on the front we have Naoya Nagai, and about a couple of seconds later we have Satoru Omu. So a couple of Japanese guys, very fast, really leading the pack. They were very close together before they started lapping the Mustangs, but so far it's spread out a bit after that. Then on third we have Lempinen, who's about 3.5 seconds backs, and he's actually leading a group of, I think, about 6 guys.
Yeah, I see that the second 2 drivers, Jerry Withhook and Pietri Lempinen, the top 2 have got quite a little gap on these 2, so they'll be battling to try and catch up if it's at all possible. In the C2 class, what have we got going there, Kevin?
Well, what we do have is Rupe Turkala has managed to pull out a bit about a 3.5 second lead over the second place car of Amjad Yaman. So that was kind of started by dealing with the Corvette of Steve Barsby earlier on, and now there's a little bit of gap between most of the guys as they kind of settle a little bit into their groove. Valerio Chieti, after that contact with Jonathan Fuller, has spent a significant time in pit lane, and his race may be pretty much close to done. But one of the big stories right now is John Paquin, who is a very, very, very fast driver and was looking very, very fast throughout practice this week. But woke up today and was feeling a bit ill, we're told, and just wanted to try and run some conservative pace. And that conservative pace has taken him from last in class to third in class, about 8 seconds behind the class leaders. So even though he might be feeling under the weather, he's still looking very quick today.
Yeah, I'm just watching his car as you were talking there. He's still got a lot of work to do if he wants to catch up to the leaders there. But Eton, looking at the Mustang class, I see Dan Rash up to second place in the Mustang class.
Yeah, through all the chaos of the traffic, Dan Rash has been able to get up to second, and J.D. Baumgartner had just passed Patrick Pieri in turn 1 for third. So I think JD wants to get back up into that lead after that mistake.
And the leader is still Oscar Salen there. So Oscar's got a quite a good lead on Dan Rash there. So Dan's got his work cut out again to try and catch up to Oscar. But again, there's Dan just being passed by, I believe that is Amjad Yaman in the C1 class. So there's going to be a lot of that stuff going on with these poor Mustangs today, Ayrton.
Yeah, and that's going to be the difficult part about this endurance race. And C3 drivers and C2 drivers are going to have to be aware of the C1 drivers lapping them, and vice versa for the C1 drivers being able to pass safely. So there's going to be a lot of awareness, not just of your class, but the other classes.
Yeah,
And,
that's exactly right. The thing that we could talk about right now is the pit stop. So a 2-hour race. I'm a little unfamiliar with these cars. We know the Mustangs quite well, and we believe that with the fuel percentages that they've got, it seems to be fairly high, although the Mustang has been limited to about 50%. How does that compare with, say, the SES, where they run a similar fuel, limited fuel, Ayrton, with the Mustangs? Is it the same amounts of fuel they have here, or is it less or more?
It's a little bit less, so I think there's still enough for the drivers just to make 2 stops and make it on 3 stints.
Right, so it looks to me as if the fuel has been limited for each class at different levels. So C1's got 69% and C2 70%. So that, I suppose, is to even it out so that they all do 2 stops, would you think?
Yep.
Actually,
Alright
after
then, so,
looking at it, I
what
think maybe the... Sorry, Richard, I've been looking at it. I think maybe the Corvette's actually gonna need maybe to stop 3 times. I only think the very conservative drivers will be able to make it on 2 stops.
Okay, so fuel conservation obviously is going to be a very large part of this race. With these Corvettes, they obviously use a lot of fuel, looking at the pace that they have. So it's going to be a long race, and everybody's going to be just working their way through the laps and trying to keep it clean.
We have a crash
and
in the infield.
trying to make up positions. So guys, at
Richard,
this
there appears
stage
to be
in
a crash
time,
in the
is there
field. Stefan, what did you
anybody?
get?
We'll start off with you, Kevin. Are you seeing anything worth talking about right now?
It sounds like Stefan spotted a crash.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, it was the Corvettes going into the infield. I think it was involving...
Which class?
Unfortunately, I think we may have lost Stefan just now for the moment, so we'll try and get that sorted out, folks. Sorry about that.
Okay, well, Kevin, I'll get back to you then. Have you seen anything that is noteworthy in any of the classes? I know that you're particularly watching the C1 class, but if you've seen anything, let us know.
Well, it sounds like Corvette of Niccolo Roncelli was the one that actually crashed. We'll try and check up on that and see if he's able to get back to you. I have been paying attention to the Ford GTs in the C2 class, and was interesting to watch. As soon as we finished talking about John Paquin, he immediately slid wide into turn 1, and that allowed Jonathan Fuller to get back by around him. But I've been paying attention to these guys really struggling to get around the C3 Mustangs in the infield. It seems like the Ford GT is really hampered by the slower car in there and just can't seem to quite find a way around, especially since the Ford GT's big strength is in its cornering ability and not so much in its acceleration or straight line speed. So that could be a big story as we continue through this race.
Yeah, and just looking at Nico Roncelli, and we noticed that he's in the pits at this point in time now, so he's dropping down the order pretty quickly as the other drivers complete their laps and pass him while he's in the pits. We also can note that Stefan is back with us. Stefan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right. These things happen. We are, of course, working in a virtual world. We are not in the real world here. So we are dependent on computers to give us the connection that we have to this iRacing sim. I want to get back to you there, Ayrton. The Dan Rash Oscar Sarlin battle, has that actually become a battle, or is Oscar still doing it easily?
No, Oscar's still quite a bit ahead, but he has a train of Corvettes trying to pass him, which is probably slowing him down in the corners. And Dan Rash and JD Baumgartner are sitting behind one another to try to catch up to him. And I think, like, especially since this track, the infield is very difficult to pass on, JD Baumgartner and Dan Rash so far have been getting really lucky and getting past on the straights. And I actually see a Corvette being spun around. I think that's Jory Without.
Yeah, he spun out on the exit of the onto the ovals on his own. No damage, it seems.
Yeah, guys, well, just looking at Dan Rash now, he is a little way behind Oscar, but it seems to me as if he's caught up a bit while Oscar was involved. As they both go, there's a faster car coming through into the chicane. Dan Rash lets him through and allows him to continue along his way. But it does seem to me, Ayrton, as if he might be catching Oscar just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think if JD and Dan work together, they might be able to pull up behind Oscar Salin. And as long as they get lucky with all the traffic, they may have a chance. But actually, JD Baumgartner is now looking on the inside of Dan Rash, going to turn one.
Yes, and this is on the long oval section as they go down into turn one. Dan Rash very conservative today, not perhaps the Dan Rash we know and love, and he lets JD go through and just slots in behind him, Ayrton.
Yeah, I think knowing that JD probably has more practice than him, he's going to let JD go ahead and kind of lead him to the front. So that's probably some strategic driving from Rash.
Correct. We do know Dan Rash quite well. In fact, we know JD as well. Both of these drivers race in the Continental Series, which we do cover. And I think you're right, Ayrton, that Dan Rash, being the canny driver that he is, he will use JD Baumgartner's perhaps extra pace to his advantage and just sit behind him in the draft, do you think?
Yeah,
and Richard, I want to jump in. There's been a battle between Florian Utz and Taft Baldwin for several laps now, running nose to tail. And Taft Baldwin did actually make the move into turn one on the draft and got by Florian Utz. So that was a great textbook pass using the draft right there. But now they have Corvette battle right behind them.
And I noticed on my screen there was a change there between Petri Lempinen and Richard Schouteren. So it seems that Petri has just taken over the third place there, Kevin.
Well, Stefan would probably know the answer to that. Maybe Richard had some issues.
Stefan?
I believe Richard was the Corvette who spun after trying to pass Oscar Salin.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I tell you what, these cars, they've got a lot of power to put down, and they're quite heavy cars as well. So they must be a handful to drive on this track, Stefan.
Yeah, the Corvettes really have a very high to weight ratio, so it's easily to spin on the exits of the corners on the oval, and so it's very high downforce, so it can easily do full speed there.
Yeah, I'm just watching Richard Schouteren as we speak now, and he just got onto the oval after coming out of the chicane, and these cars they look awesome. There's no doubt about it, guys. I might just switch over to Sean and ask Sean, have you noticed anything that might be interesting for us to talk about, Sean?
Well, I like the battle that's going on right now. Oscar Salin's got a pretty solid run going. Obviously, Naoya Nagai is strong. Watching his practice runs, he's going to be hard to beat today. So I don't know if anyone's going to be able to contend with him, but pretty solid, clean race so far. I think coming up, we've got pit strategy to start thinking about here. I expect they'll be coming in pretty soon.
Yeah, and they're still passing. There's a lot of intermingling of cars at this point in time because of the different differential in speed. But perhaps we should just go down from the top there and start giving us a little rundown on the standings at the moment as we see Rube Tequila coming up on one of the Mustangs. I believe that might well be JD Bumgardner, and we'll just watch as he goes through. I'm pretty sure JD will allow him to pass, although through this twisty section, JD actually has a slight advantage, and then they get onto a straighter section, and boom, it just blasts by. So there's certainly a big speed differential between these cars. But Rudy, you've been watching various things happening. What can you tell us, buddy?
Well, I'm kind of watching as the C1 class is starting to close in on the C2 class now to lap them. And the C1 class, definitely a pretty powerful class that's out here in the Corvette. So this is going to be very interesting to see how they're going to maneuver around the C2 classes in some of the turns. So most of the passing, I believe, is going to have to be done on the straightaways with these cars.
Yes, sir. I just watched our leader, Noya Nagai, pass one of the cars there, and I believe that may well have been John Paquin. I'm not quite sure. But the speed differential between the C1 and even the C2 class is quite huge. So, man, this is going to be a very interesting as we have the intermingling between C1 and C2, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think you just saw it on your screens where there was a three-wide action there for a moment between the three classes. As Dan Rash and the C3 Mustang was on the inside, Noya Nagai and the C1 Corvette was in the middle, and Jonathan Fuller and the C2 Ford GT was on the outside. And that was some pretty big speed differentials going on right there. A lot of things going on all over the place, and everybody here's got to keep their heads on a swivel because we're seeing some heavy action right now. Poor Jonathan Fuller has a slower car in front of him, a faster car behind him, and JD Baumgartner's just doing the best he can to keep out of everybody's way.
Yes, and I'm with Satoru Ono at the moment, who's in second place overall. And let's see, as they go onto the oval, he is now following Jonathan Fuller, and we should see him blast by there. First of all, they blast by a Mustang. The Mustangs really, Ethan, they look slow compared to these other two classes.
Yeah, they really do, and especially also in the infield section, how it's all twisty and very narrow, difficult to pass. These guys are just held up a lot, and they lose a lot of time as well, so it's going to be really difficult to get around the C3 class when you're in the C2 or C1.
Yeah, the thing about this track I've noticed, like, it's very wide. There's plenty of space for everybody, particularly in the oval section. And it seems that everybody is very respectful going through the infield so that there's no dramas. We haven't seen any really big accidents or incidents to talk about. But once they get onto the oval, then the faster classes can put the power down. And it really shows up the speed differential of between themselves and this Mustang, which we used to seeing as the faster class in some of the other series, Ayrton.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and it's interesting to see like this combination. It's obviously like all very heavy cars. Actually, we do have a car off track. Just checking to see if it whiz, and looks like Richard Schuterin is having a really difficult time getting his car around. I think that was the third or fourth time sending it off track.
Yeah, I've got the cameras on Richard Schuterin right now. He was in third place in the opening laps of the race, and bear in mind we are now on lap 18 as he comes onto the oval once again, passes one of the Mustangs, another Mustang in front of him, puts the power down and slams past him, and then he comes up to one of the Class 2 cars, Florian Utz, and he blasts past him as well. So but yeah, he's having a few problems, probably with the handling the car. Maybe his setup is not the best setup for this particular track, but certainly he's fallen way behind the leaders, which is Noya Nagai, who seems to be doing it quite easily there, Stefan.
Yeah, also Nagai has had some good luck in the traffic. He's caught some of these lower classes on the straightaways, while these pursuers Ono and Lempinen has been having to get past them on the infield. So that's really helped him out and giving about a 5-second lead now.
Yeah,
And
that's
guys,
a
it
good
looks
lead.
like Richard, I'm going to bump in. It looks like John Paquin has had a big wreck off of T1, got in a little too hot under braking, got sideways, and stuffed it into the wall. And I think that car may be done. Sounds like Steve Hobbs tried to have a sympathy off and also ran right into the wall in the XOT1.
And we'll get a replay of that incident. John Paquin is out of the car at this point in time. He's taking a tow. So you're quite right, Kevin. His race might well be done.
Yeah, with the kind of damage I was seeing on that car, that was unfortunate. He had a real big hit at real high speed. Looks like maybe too much rear brake bias or something like that, because he sure snapped around in a hurry, and I don't think he had slowed down too much before he hit the wall on the inside.
Ouch. Well, I'll tell you what, we did mention earlier on that he was feeling quite ill when he got up this morning, so we'll put that down to him not being at full with full capacity to do this race.
And Stefan, it sounds like we also lost Steve Hobbs. Is that correct?
Yeah, as you mentioned, he also went off that turn, and he's also exited out. I don't think he's going to come back.
Okay, guys. Well, it probably is a good time for us to do a list of the standings as we see it. So we'll get each class in place. So perhaps you want to talk to us about the C1 class. Give us the standings for that, Stefan.
Yeah, on the first position we have Narayan Guy, and he's followed by Satoru Ono about 5 seconds back, and he's then right in the battle with the Lempinen. Then on fourth we have Theo Dahlberg, Richard Sheridan in fifth, Yuri Vituk in Yuri Vituk in sixth, and Mario Bortri in seventh, John G. Hill in eighth, and then Steve Hobbs is still listed in ninth, but he's out.
Excellent. And Kevin, give us the standings for the C2 class.
Yeah, absolutely. Rupi Turkala is still our leader in the C1 class, and it looks like he may have accidentally just inadvertently caused a change of position between Petri Lempinen and Satoru Ono in the C1 class. And it looks like Satoru Ono lost out in the chicane and allowed Petri to get back. But as I said, Rupe is in the lead in C2. Amjad Yaman is second.
And Lempinen just spun out.
We have a car off.
So Satoru got that position back, I guess, there. Steph, is that correct?
Yeah, Lempinen just had a slide off in the grass and back on track, but lost the position.
So C2 is Ruve Turkala, and then about 8 seconds behind him is Amjad Yaman. About another 9 seconds further back is Jonathan Fuller. Then looks to be Taft Baldwin, and then Chuck Johnson and Yuri Mojacek rounds out the runners in the C2 class.
Well, Taft Baldwin just had an off. And was on the grass, so he's coming back on track now, struggling with the handling of the car at this point in time, but he's back and racing once again. So, Ayrton, can you give us the standings, please, in the C3 class?
Yeah, sure. We have Oscar Salin with quite a large lead, with J.D. Baumgartner in second, trying to pull him in, and then there's Dan Rash in third. Also equal gap, and then there's a battle for fourth between Patrick Bieri and Randolph Chenov, which has been going on for a majority of the race. They do have a faster driver in between them at the moment. That's the leader of the C1 class, but those two have been going really close together, and in the final position in sixth place is Jimmy Eflin, who's a lap down from the C3 leaders.
And there are some drivers who are either in the pits or out of the race. We have Nico Roncelli, who's scored as 5 laps down. Valerio Chieti as he's probably retired, as well as Steve Barsby. Director, we might go to a break at this stage, as we have 20 laps completed by the leaders already at this point in time. So we'll go to a break and we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to the Targa Long Pond 120 at Pocono Raceway International. At the moment, we have just been observing the guys go round, and it looks like everything has kept the same sort of place and standings. Not much action at this point in time, but we are getting close to the fuel window now where people will start pitting, and that will change things up a fair bit. We have an additional member in the booth at this point in time, the organizer of the series, Jacob Damaris. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Jacob, tell us a little bit, whilst there's not a lot of action happening at this point in time, about the organization of this race and what you hope to achieve with the series and those sorts of things.
Yeah, this race is part of any race I host is under the brand Targa race sanctioning, and they're all kind of meant to be usually endurance races and usually meant to be difficult, using tracks and things that are maybe not normally used, but definitely increase the difficulty. My premier event's the Targa Virginia, which is run in December each year, and this year we'll be doing the third edition of that. Saw over 70 drivers try to qualify for it last year, so it's very popular. This is a race we did last year as well, and it was received well by the people that did it. I think today we're seeing a pretty classic race, as I think I see one of the Corvettes coming down the pit lane now, Terrell Dahlberg, third position.
Yes, that's correct. We've got the camera on Terrell at the moment. Stefan, keep an eye on him. Let's see how long the pit stop is, so that we can judge how long it takes him to get in and out of the pits. Guys, let's have a quick rundown once again on the standing so we know where everybody is. Although perhaps not the best time to do that as the pit stops take place. But certainly our leaders in the various classes are still Noya Nagai. Now this guy seems to have been doing it very, very easily, Jacob, without any dramas at all.
Yeah, and he won last year. This race featured the Daytona Type with the Ford GT and Cadillac, and he was driving the Cadillac last year, and he won for that class. And I think he just really loves this track. He didn't show up in any of the other races that I had hosted, so I think this is just something he enjoys doing. I know we should be seeing pit stops around now for people that are going to be doing a two-stop, which I'm guessing is most. I assume they would split the race into 3 40-minute segments.
Yeah, Richard, Taro Dahlberg is back out on the track. Had approximately about a 19-second pit stop. So no tires. I did not see any tires go on.
I see I see about I think 3 Mustangs and a few Corvettes coming down the pit lane.
Yeah, second, third, and fourth place, Dan Rash, Patrick Bieri, and Randolph Chenef have all gone in at the same time, so I'm interested to see who will come out first.
Lempinen's in. Ono's in.
As well
Yes,
as
I
Taft
see
Baldwin.
at least 1, 2, 3 Mustangs there, and we see who's that? Patrick Bieri. Dan Rash does get out just in front of him. They're going down pit road at the moment to re-enter the track, and just in front of them we have Yuri Withok, who actually he was coming into the pits at this point in time. A lot of pit stops taking place as we speak, Jacob.
Yeah, and the pit exit here is very difficult. You see coming into turn 1, normally it narrows down a lot, and there really isn't a place for the cars to go. So that's going to be something interesting to watch, make sure everybody gets through cleanly.
And
Yeah,
Taft
and
Baldwin
we
has
see the
fun in
leader.
turn
The
2.
leader is coming down pit road as we speak at the moment. That is Noya Nagai. Let's see how he goes in his pit stop, guys. In the meantime, Roop Tequila, who's leading the C2 class, I'm not sure whether he's pitted. Somebody can let me know if he has, but I don't believe that he has pitted. He, again, is doing it very easily in the C2 class there, Kevin.
Well, actually, what I wanted to mention real quick is poor Taft Baldwin out on fresh tires, a little cold, I think, got caught out and spun. And you saw that replay on the action right there as we are back to live action, I believe, any moment now. But Taft Baldwin has now got some ground to make up on Florian Hoots. That's the driver that those two have been having a battle for the whole race so far. So spinning on cold tires is not going to help him out too much.
And it looks like Rup Tequila is in the pits now.
Correct. I was about to say that. Rup Tequila, the leader in the C2 class, has just gone into the pits. Second place, Jonathan Fuller is slowing down significantly. Kevin, what's happening there?
I'm not sure. I'm wondering if he is out of fuel. He has pulled off into the grass right now. That looks like a stricken car. I hope he is not out of fuel, as he has just taken a tow.
Actually, the battle for the lead in the C3 class, Oscar Sallin came out right in front of JD Baumgartner. JD Baumgartner tried to go on the outside of turn 1. It looks like he secured the pass
And we
and
got a
managed
car
to get
just
ahead.
spinning just in front of Oscar Salen there. And who was that? That was that Chuck Johnson? I don't know. I can't see who that was. But continue, Ethan, with your summary there.
Well, JD Baumgartner managed to use the pit stop to catch up to Oscar and made a great pass on him for the first position in the C3 class.
Jimmy Eifling, we're hearing, was the driver who spun out. So at this point in time, Oscar Salen still leading the class. JD Baumgartner in second place there. Dan Rash, where is our friend Dan Rash? He's in third place, but a fairly distant third there, Eton.
Yeah, he seemed to lost quite a bit of time, and but he did gain some time on Patrick Bieri and ran a chin up through the pit cycles. That has helped him get a gap, but he's still quite far behind Baumgartner and Solin in first.
And it did look like Jonathan Fuller ran out of fuel coming down the straightaway before the chicane, so he wasn't able to make it back to the pits and had to take that tow. So that's a second place in C2 in the pits.
Yeah, we're seeing him in the pits as we speak now, and he's just taken his fuel, and it looks like he'll be coming. It doesn't look like he's got any damage at all, so he should rejoin and try to make up some positions from where he was. He's just exiting now as we speak, but that will not have helped his cause. He'll be fairly well down in the standings at this point.
Yeah, he appears to be at least a lap down behind Rupe and may even lose another one here very shortly.
Solin is off the course in 2.
It looks like
Salen, Oscar Salen, what's happening there? Yes, he is showing that he's lost the position to JD Baumgartner. Eton, what's happened there?
he ran wide on the exit of turn 1, and now Dan Rash is right on his rear.
Well, this should make things a little bit interesting. We have Dan, you're quite right, Dan Rash is right on his bumper as they enter the oval section now. Let's see what Dan Rash can do in the tow, Ayrton.
Hey guys, it looks like Patrick Bieri is crabbing on track. It looks like he got involved with the 01 Corvette of Mario Beaudry on the infield and may have terminal damage.
Yes, he's actually showing as not being in the car at this point in time, so he's taking a tow, and that may well be the end of his race. So let's get back to the Dan Rash. Sorry, who was that?
So you
We're
can see
looking
right
at a
now.
replay of Bieri right now, the incident that that was caused there. But we did have somebody breaking into the broadcast. Who was that? Go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm that you were actually seeing Mario Beaudry accidentally get in a little bit too deep and get Patrick Bieri in the right rear, and I think that's the end of Patrick Bieri's day today.
Well, that's unfortunate because these guys they were going really well. But Dan Rash, this is probably a little bit of the action here, Eton. Dan Rash is putting on a challenge now on Oscar Salen in front of him.
Yeah, and I think what put down Dan Rash in practice and qualifying was the lack of practice, and by now he probably has figured out the track, so he's going to be able to put the pressure on and see if he can make Solin make a mistake and make a maneuver and see if he can catch up to Baumgartner in the process.
And we've been informed that there's been a penalty applied to Mario Beaudry for that contact. He has been black flagged, so he's definitely being reminded to make sure you don't hit the slower cars.
Okay. Jacob, how does your penalty system work?
In the pre-race and before, during all the practice sessions, everything, the drivers are reminded, or are told, any contact between a faster class to a slower class from any sort of dive bomb passing maneuver, as long as it's not like the slower class coming down into one of the quicker cars, it's always going to be the quicker car's fault. And for that, Mario really shouldn't have dove in on the inside of that corner. Really wasn't Patrick's fault, and so for that he just gets a stop and go penalty.
Well, thank you for that, Jacob. We're still on board with Dan Rash at this point in time, and as they are on the oval section now, we can see that he is making up some time on Oscar. Ayrton, this might be an opportunity for him, although he seems to be backing off a little bit.
Yeah, the Mustangs actually don't get a very good toe with the draft, so it's still quite difficult to make a maneuver using the oval section of the track, but it's still helpful. You can still gain a tenth or two, and he just has to get a run on the out of the bus stop to be able to make a move into turn 1.
Yeah, but Oscar seems to have him covered pretty well, because the gap has not diminished at all between himself and Oscar, as we see a faster car. That's Nagoya, Nagai, I think, that passed them both. Let's stay with this battle for a little bit, because it seems this might be an opportunity for Dan to show his prowess in the Mustang, Ayrton.
Yeah, and these guys have quite a distance from JD Baumgartner as well. They're letting a few Corvettes by, and wow, Corvette making quite a maneuver to get around Dan, and it's very difficult to pass these guys not knowing where they're going to go, if they're going to go the inside or outside, and that makes it difficult for both classes, just predicting what the other driver's going to do. So I think we might see later in this race an incident involving the Roval section, just some miscommunication with drivers giving the other position.
Well, it looks like Dan is a lot closer now to Oscar than he was previously, so he's definitely putting some pressure on there, Ayrton.
Yeah, it looks like he's poking around the outside. Is he going to go inside or outside, or is he just going to bump draft Solin to see? He might just be playing it strategically and looking to catch up to JD Baumgartner in the first position.
Well, we do know Dan Rash very, very well. He is one of the most thinking drivers of the ones that we know, and he's a very technical. He's a specialist at setting up cars as well. So I'll be looking for him now that he's got a sniff that he can do something with Oscar. I believe that he'll be feeling him out and trying to find out where the most opportune passing place might be for him, Ayrton.
Yeah, the gap between those two and Baumgartner has been quite consistent. They ran about the same lap times. Baumgartner ran a 40.9 and Solomon ran a 41.0. So these cars are about the same speed. So it's all about just seeing who can, who's going to make the most mistakes, or who's going to have the worst luck with traffic.
Yeah, and I know this past lap JD got stuck in some traffic, and he's actually slowed down quite a bit. So, Oscar and Dan can definitely see him ahead of them now.
Yeah, and that will just give them some incentive to try and catch him, as we can see. We are getting some information. Stefan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that looks like we are about to have a battle for the second position in the Corvette class. We have Satoru Ono, who's lost a bit of time doing these last laps, and behind him, Tiro Dahlberg is really getting close to him.
Yes, Tero Dahlberg, he has a spin there, nearly lost it in that turn, so that'll set him back a little bit in his quest to catch Satoru in front of him. But we'll keep an eye on that one, Stefan, and if you do see some action happening there, let us know. Let's just go around and see what's happening in the various classes. Kevin, you seeing anything interesting?
Well, there's been a little bit of action. Taft Baldwin a couple laps ago had a spin as he was trying to avoid running into, I believe it was Randolph Chineth, but he also at the same time had a Corvette around him, so he kind of got himself stuck between two minds. You can see he just finally let Rupe Turkala by to lap him. So that's not a battle for position right now on screen, but Taft is slowly trying to catch up to Florian Utz, who he was battling with earlier, and in the middle between them is Chuck Johnson, who is a regular in our Blondie Series coverage and also in our Continental Series coverage in the MX-5s, and he's having a nice solid run moving up. He is currently 4th in class, and sounds like we might have a Mustang battle brewing.
Yeah, Dan Rash is still right on the bumper as Oscar Sallin. Both of those two cut down half a second with their gap with Baumgartner. So these two, I think, are going to work together to try to catch up to Baumgartner, and we may have a three-car battle for the lead.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting now. We're coming up to the 1 hour mark, so we're approaching the halfway mark here. The drivers should be well settled in. They should know exactly what the cars are doing and where the weak points or weak areas on the track of the various cars. So we look from this point onward to people to consolidate their positions or start perhaps making some attacking moves, Ayrton.
Yeah, and actually, just that past lap, Dan Rash and Oscar Sallin had some 4GT traffic, so they lost another 5 tenths and just made the gap equal to what it was a lap before.
Yeah, and they're definitely working. They're definitely working together here to catch up to JD in front of them. They're bumping each other down the straightaways. It's actually pretty cool to see cooperation like that.
Yeah, we saw that happen in one of the Continental Series races where Dan Rash and I believe it was Steve Brown, Kevin, you might enlighten us on that, they used the oval section, this was at Daytona, to actually bump draft each other and push each other to catch up to whoever was in first place. I believe it was Kimmo Suominen. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah, you nailed it on the spot. That was definitely a big advantage for the two of them when they were able to work together, stay in the draft, go a little bit faster than Kimmo Suominen was able to at that time in that race. So I assume that's what these guys are doing right now, because it sounds like JD's got a nice little lead.
Yeah, it seemed to me just for a moment there that the gap had become a bit less, but they can see. They can see him as we see Ayrton. Look at Dan Rash. He's actually virtually pushing Oscar down the oval.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot in oval racing, but don't know how well it works in cars like a Mustang. And looks like that the gap has closed a little bit more to JD Baumgartner again. Only a tenth this lap, but slowly but surely they're closing in on him.
Yeah, and I'm wondering whether, in fact, Oscar is aware of what exactly Dan Rash is doing here, but it's pretty clear to us. Let's go. We're getting some information that Lempinen is involved in something, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, Taft Baldwin spun going into turn 1, and he just spun again. So
and there's a big
Oh,
crash there. 3 cars involved. We had the car spinning. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was Theo Dahlberg and Lempinen who got into that spinning car, and I think both got some damage there.
And we have Lempinen off the track now. He's on the grass, so he must have some damage from that. It was pretty heavy contact there, so that's not going to help these guys at all. He's come back on track now, so I would believe that he might be thinking about a pit stop to try and get some damage repaired there. But at this point in time, Tero Dahlberg, he's still going. He was involved there as well.
It looks like he's crabbing a bit.
Sorry,
so
go ahead, Stefan.
I said it looked like he's crabbing a bit, so I suspect he's going into pit as well, but we'll see when he gets back to the front line.
Yeah, Lempinen, he's kind of bringing it around the tracker. I think he is going to be heading for pit road as he cuts a course, just trying to make sure that he stays out of everybody's way to make it to pit road.
Yeah, and that chicane coming onto the front corner of the course is very difficult to do, so I'm not surprised he'd want to cut through that and just mitigate his loss.
Yeah, you will have got to slow down there, no doubt, but that means nothing at this point when your car's that badly damaged. As we see him coming into the pits, and just ahead of him, Taft Baldwin comes into the pits as well. So these are unscheduled pit stops for these two guys. So that's going to harm their chances of getting further up the field.
Yeah, so Richard, it looks to me like Taft Baldwin was pushing hard, trying to catch up to Chuck Johnson and Florian Oots in front of him. Had that spin into turn one and caused a little bit of damage to his left front, and probably wasn't aware of that. And when he got to the next corner, around he went, and those poor Corvettes had nowhere to go. So that was very unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. Well, Ayrton, you want to update us on the Dan Rash situation? Let's go back to that battle. Is it still on?
Yeah, Dan Rash just sitting behind it. Actually, Oscar Salin just went right through the chicane very slowly. I think he just missed his braking zone.
Yes, he'll have a slowdown penalty for that for sure. So Dan Rash has now moved up a position into second place. That was a gift. We've lost Ayrton, have we?
No, I'm here.
So it looks like to me, just kind of looking at that, like Oscar Salin, when he tried to turn in, the car started going around. I think he just tried to abort the chicane and keep the car under control rather than spin and maybe wreck it. So a little bit of heads-up driving, I think, there from Oscar.
Yeah, it did look like he was having some trouble with his tires a few corners back. He had a big slide entering the oval section as well, almost losing it.
And it does look like Lempinen has taken his car behind the wall and may be done for the day, guys.
Well,
Also looks like Taro is pitted.
Go ahead there, Sean, please.
Yeah, well, we've got Taro Dahlberg in the pit now. Looks like a long pit stop right now. He's not coming back out yet.
Yeah, he was caught up in the same incident as Lempinen, but he was a bit less damaged. But let's see if he's drivable car when it comes back out.
Okay, guys. Well, it might be an opportune moment for us to just go down the standings. So let's start off with the C1 class there, Stefan.
Yeah, well, as usual, we have Naoya Nagai leading, and then Satoru Ono in second place. So that's still the two Japanese guys up front. Then Richard Shouton really took advantage of those two unfortunate Corvettes, and he's up to third now, but that's 24 seconds behind the leader. Yuri Vituk in fourth, John G. Hill in fifth, and then we have the lapped Corvettes in Mario Berti.
And of course we had Tero Dahlberg and Lempinen who are in the pits. Lempinen will be showing as going further and further backwards as he's taking his car behind the wall, as was mentioned by Rudy. Going to the C2 class, Kevin, give us the standings there for the viewers.
Well, we still have Rupe Turkula with a stranglehold over the C2 class. He's got about a 30-second lead over second place Amjad Yaman. In third, it will be Florian Oots. Fourth, Chuck Johnson. Fifth, Jonathan Fuller. And then the trailing car still running in that class would be Yuri Mojak. So not too much action from those guys right now, but that's not the case in the Mustang field, right, Ayrton?
Yeah, with Oscar Salin's mistake, Dan Rash has moved up to second, with JD Baumgartner still leading, but Dan Rash did do a faster lap than him, closed in 10th, and if he keeps doing that, he'll be able to catch up to them, and we still got to remember that we do have a pit stop coming, so that will come into play. But Oscar Salin in third, Randolph Chenoweth in fourth, Patrick Bury in fifth, and Jimmy Eiflin in sixth, but I think he's has retired.
Yeah, it certainly looks Jimmy Eiflin is not showing as being inside the car, so he's definitely retired. Patrick Bieri is not inside the car as well. If he's not in the pits, then he is obviously retired as well. So this is the situation as we see the leaders have completed some 43 laps. We're about an hour and 5 minutes into the race. It might be an appropriate time for us to take a short break. So, Director, if you will put on some music for us, we'll be right back, viewers. Welcome back to the broadcast of the Targa Long Pond 120 at Pocono Raceway International. Currently, we are watching the leader, Noya Nagai, who has, for most of the race, been doing it pretty easily. But in the lap just before we came back, he was off on the grass just briefly, although it didn't cause any damage. But he's still pretty well leading this without any problems at all, Stefan.
Yeah, and actually the lap before he set his fastest lap so far, so it's a bit up and down for him, but no trouble from the Corvettes behind.
Yeah, just looking back at the second place position, who is Satoru Ono, he is a fair distance behind, so 9 seconds in fact it's showing on my screen, so that just shows how much Noya is dominating this race.
Richard, if I may interject here, going back to when he come out of the pits, he went in first, he came out first, and was only about 2.6 seconds ahead of second place, extended that out to about 10 seconds, and has been kind of floating right around about that 9 to 11 second area ahead of second place.
Yeah, to me that's dominating. If you've got a 5 second or more lead on your rival in the place behind you, then in my mind you are really dominating the race. But if we look at the third place, which is Richard Schoterin, he's 25 seconds back from the leader, so he's got a lot of work to do to even make up any time on second place there, Stefan.
Yeah, as we remember, Richard had a bit of trouble in the early part of the race, and maybe it was the weather that caught him a bit off. I know the wind is coming from a different direction than what has been practiced before, so but he's got to know it, but found a rhythm now and just putting the laps in.
Okay, this is quite interesting actually. You mentioned weather. Jacob, do you want to tell us about the way you've set up your weather settings for this race?
Yeah, sure. With the last update, iRacing added in the ability to change the weather for hosted sessions, and they offer a tick box that will adjust it into what they call real-world weather settings. So it's kind of this is typical for this track or something. I took it a step further and was looking at the forecast for weather each day and would update the weather settings manually to kind of mimic the real world. So the drivers had the ability to look at the forecast for Long Pond, Pennsylvania, and get an idea what the weather might actually be like for the race day. So far it's been pretty exciting. I think most of the drivers have really enjoyed that. And yet we do see JD Baumgartner in the leader in C3.
Yes, and just going back to that weather real quickly, currently showing that we have a 65-degree track temperature, and currently the wind is from the southwest at about 6 miles per hour with a 46% humidity. So is that the real weather in Pennsylvania at this time?
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's a partly cloudy day there. I think the temperatures are slightly cooler, low 60s, but 65 is the lowest iRacing lets us put it, and the wind is from the southwest, which is actually the opposite direction that it has been for the past few days. So that might be some of the reason we're seeing some of the drivers having difficulty here, especially in the beginning, not used to the weather conditions the way they are today.
Okay, now I want to jump over, Ayrton, to the C3 class, the Mustangs, because I'm seeing JD Baumgartner showing as well down on Dan and Oscar. What happened there? Has he pitted?
Yep, JD Baumgartner has done a second pit stop, which should bring him to the end of the race. So now we have to wait and see if Dan Rash and Oscar Salin, when they'll come into pits, and if they'll be able to make a jump.
Yes, Dan Rash has opened up a significant lead on Oscar at the moment. So he should be, as we mentioned earlier, we're all thinking that we're sort of approaching the second pit window now, and that these guys will all pitting. So We see that JD Bumgardner, probably a wise thing, do you think, Ayrton, to take the early pit stop when there's nothing doing and everybody's, there's nobody else in the pit, so he can time it correctly?
Well, yeah, I'm interested to see how the strategy will work. I would normally try to pit when there's a lot of traffic going on, so I don't get slowed down by that. He had a lot of clear air, and I'm kind of surprised that he was one of the first drivers to pit.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on Dan Rash for us and Oscar and see when they pit. Going back to the C2 class there, Kevin, Rube Tequila doing it fairly easily.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. He's currently sitting on a 45-second lead over Amjad Yaman. He's steadily lapping about a second a lap faster. But a couple of laps ago, he's still pushing hard enough that a couple of laps ago, coming out of the fast turn 4, he had a beautiful drift getting on the power and did manage to reel it back in before he looped it right around. But it's pretty steady right now. Amjad Yaman, as I said, is in second place. Jonathan Fuller, a few laps ago, got around Chuck Johnson, so he's sitting in the final podium spot in C2. And then everybody else is quite a ways down. I believe Florian Utz and Yuri Mojak are both a couple laps down from Rupe, so it's fairly settled right now, and I think Rupe just needs to make sure that he doesn't wreck the car, and he should come home pretty well.
Yeah, I was watching, as you were talking, I was watching Jonathan Fuller. I'm still watching him as we speak here. He had the car wiggling a fair bit, so I'm just wondering whether the tires are at the end of their stint here and that these guys should really be thinking about pitting now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're looking at about 5 minutes to the final pit stop, and then it'll be their final stint. So these Ford GTs very, very well may have those rear tires kind of burnt off by now.
Yeah, because he is certainly wiggling a lot as he goes into turns, especially as he comes out of turns and puts the power down. Because as somebody mentioned, these things, they can very, very easily spin when you floor that accelerator. So, guys, not a lot happening. We'll keep an eye on anything that is exciting, but perhaps we should mention the drivers who have lost out today, who have given up. Who's been watching the pit stops for us? Sean, can you tell us who the drivers are that are definitely out of the race right now?
Yeah, right now we've got Barsby. Steve Barsby's out of the race. Valerio Chietti's out of the race. John Pockween is out of the race. Steve Hobbs is out. Jimmy Elling. Patrick Bieri. Right now, those are the ones I can confirm are actually out of the race. Lempinen is out as well.
Yeah,
and
I see. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you'll notice there's pretty high attrition rate, and generally that happens in the Targa races. They're kind of set up to be very difficult, and this track with these cars is definitely not an easy task, so you'll see a pretty high attrition rate. I know, going back to the C3 battle a bit, and I don't know if Dan's coming to the pits just yet, and he hasn't, but he's been doing quicker lap times than JD. I don't know if JD's been stuck in traffic, so it might be when Dan comes out of the pits, they might be very close on track, if not Dan in front.
I was actually just looking at JD, and coming out of his pit stop, the lap after, he made a mistake on the infield and actually went off course. That probably lost him quite a bit of time.
Yeah, guys, I can also confirm that Taft Baldwin is probably out of the race as well, because I'm not seeing him in his car. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drivers that have called it a day. Going back to JD Bumgardner there, Ayrton, he is back in track after his pit stop. He made a mistake, as you said, so we're still waiting to see whether Dan Rash and Oscar Salen will, when they will pit, because that will then tell us where JD Bumgardner is in relation to them. Ayrton.
Yeah, and JD's last lap was actually very fast, a 40.5, which was a whole second faster than Dan. So Dan Rash and Oscar Salen might want to start thinking about pitting pretty soon, because they're losing quite a bit of time on these worn tires.
Yeah, and as you would know, Kevin, you know a fair bit about these Mustangs as well. Tires is a big story with these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy to burn off the tires in the Mustang, that big heavy car. But I'll admit I don't have a lot of practice in the Mustang at this track, so I'm not real confident saying which is going to give up first, the fronts or the rears. But I can imagine that those especially that front left, is going to see a lot of wear, considering the high-speed turn one and the slow corners.
It looks like Oscar Salen just went off the track in turn 3, I believe, merging back on now. Doesn't look to have any damage.
Yes, we've got the camera on him as you speak, and that's exactly what happened. He put a wheel out on the grass, but no damage, and he's still circulating. That'll give Dan Rest the opportunity to put even a bigger gap on him. So things unraveling a little bit for Oscar in the latter stages of this race, Ayrton.
Yeah, and definitely on the worn tires on the Mustang, it becomes very difficult to handle, very difficult to predict how it will react, because it can be very loose and very slidey, as we've seen all the drivers making quite a few mistakes this race. So I think these guys are going to start coming in real soon, and then it'll be interesting to see where they come out in relation to JD Baumgartner.
Yeah, and we haven't had a look at Randolph Chenoweth, who's been circulating pretty much under the radar. I've got the camera on him now as we speak, and
Let me come in real quick,
his car
guys.
looks good. Who's that? Go ahead.
Dan Rash is coming in the pits now. He's entering now.
Yes, that is correct. Dan Rash coming into the pits. Where is Oscar Salen now?
He decides to
Ayrton?
stay out. Oscar Salen decides to stay out for another lap. So now it's to see if Dan Rash, where he'll come out near JD Baumgartner.
And Randolph
We also have
Chenoweth.
the that's coming in.
Satoru is in pit road too, coming to his pit stop. That was our second place guy in the C1 class.
Yeah,
Right, now
and, he was
we're
actually
seeing
having
Dan
some
Rash
troubles.
coming out there. Go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, I was just saying that Satoru had some troubles these last laps and had some slow laps, so maybe he's decided that his tires were getting too worn and also low on fuel getting in now.
Yeah, he was having a lot of difficulty getting
Dan Rash is coming out
around.
of the pits. Where's JD Baumgartner?
JD Baumgartner just passed right in front of him, so Dan Rash did gain a little bit of time through the pit cycle, but he didn't manage to make a pass on him through the pits, so he's still behind, but much closer.
Yeah, and he'll definitely be able to draft him on the speedway now, so I think the battle for the lead in C3 is more alive than it has been in the entire race.
That is correct, because right now, previous to the pit stops, JD Baumgartner had a large lead on Dan and on Oscar, but right now Dan is virtually on his bumper, Ayrton.
Yeah, and we still got Oscar Salen leading, so he still has a chance. If he can make a quick pit stop to get back up close to them, we can have a 3-car battle for the lead.
And we have Richard Scouterin coming into the pits, and we need to keep an eye on Satoru Ono, look where they come out. They were pretty close before getting in, about 6 seconds, so it's going to be close.
Yeah, all right. Well, keep an eye out on that one for us. I've got the cameras on Satoru now. Well, if I switch over to Richard, he is still not quite in his pit stall. Let's stay with him for a moment to see exactly what fuel and tires he's going to take. Meanwhile, in C2 class, Kevin, these guys haven't seemed to have thought about pitting just yet.
No, they haven't. They're still running out there running, and I've been waiting for them to stop so that nobody runs out of fuel like poor Jonathan Fuller did. But Rupe just went past start finish again, so he's going to do another lap. Amjad Yaman is just now entering the back straight, so he's got a little bit of track time to go. But considering how quickly Jonathan Fuller ran out of fuel, these are not cars that I'd consider want to really kind of push the limits on here.
Yeah, and he's actually the first one to come in now, so obviously not willing to risk it again.
Our leader's on pit road now. Noya is on pit road for making his final pit stop.
And we were watching Satoru in the pits at that time. What has happened there, Stefan? Where has he come out?
He came out before Scouterin, so didn't look like there was much difference in the time, so it's status quo there.
Okay, well, the focus now is on C2, so we haven't seen these guys pit yet excepting for Jonathan Fuller.
And
Where's
Richard,
Amjad? Amjad's in the pits right now.
yes, as you said, Amjad Yaman has stopped, so he's serving his final stop, and Rupe Turkla is still out there circling. He's got, I assume, has to come in, and yes, he's coming in this lap right now.
Yeah,
May I
because
turn the
otherwise go ahead, Jacob.
yeah, may I turn the attention to C3. I think Dan's just about to make a move on JD here for the lead coming down the front straightaway.
Okay, we'll watch this, Ayrton, because he is definitely making a move. Is that JD going to the pits?
Yeah, JD is absolutely going into the pits.
That is a bit strange because he has already executed his pit stop for his second pit stop. So what's going on there, Ayrton? Do you know?
It
I
looks
believe
like,
he pit early last time, so maybe he figured out he wouldn't be able to make it. He's just taking a quick splash, but that definitely hand the lead to Dan.
well, you know, I'm seeing a little bit of damage on the right front of JD. So, or no, maybe you're right. Maybe he just realized that he was a little short on fuel, need that splash and dash.
That's very interesting. So now if we look at the standings there, Ayrton, we see Dan Rash in his normal position out in the lead. Where's Oscar Salen in relation to him?
Looks like Oscar is about 16 seconds behind Dan Rash right now, so it's all to do for Oscar.
Ah, that's a pity. We were looking for a good battle towards the end of the race. JD coming out now as well, back on track. He's going to be fairly well backed. We're not going to see a big battle happening in the closing stages of the race in the C3 class. So back to the C1 class where Nayo Nagai is still leading comfortably from Satoru by 14 seconds. So Stefan, pardon me, Kevin, pardon me, not much of a battle here either.
No, it seems to be settled down. I think the only thing I'm seeing right now is Jonathan Fuller slowly closing in on the third place C2 car, Florian Utz. It seems he's about 7 seconds behind on the lap, so maybe he's got a chance to make that happen. But that could just be because Florian took a very early final pit stop.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that at the moment there are only 4 cars on the lead lap, and a couple of the other cars in the C1 class, Kevin, they quite well down. So you know it's taken its toll, this track, on some of these cars.
Well, yeah, you know, this is what the Targa series is all about, is very difficult cars on very difficult tracks, and we're seeing that happen today, and the guys that have stayed clean are really kind of reaping the rewards right now.
Yeah. All right, if we have a look then at the C2 class, Amjad Yaman back out there circulating. Rup Tequila has done his last pit stop, so presumably he came out in front of Amjad. Is that correct, Stefan?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead, Kevin.
so Rup Tequila still in the lead. Amjad Yaman following a very distant second place. Florian Utz, who's just passing JD Baumgartner as we speak. He's in third place there. And Jonathan Fuller still circulating. He's had a few problems today, but he's out there and circulating in fourth place. Now, I don't think we've had a camera on Chuck Johnson yet, so we'll put the camera on Chuck and see what he's up to. And he's circulating there. His car looks straight and just doing the best he can, and he's in the fifth place there, Kevin.
Yeah, might I just add in, Chuck's raced in quite a few Targa events. He's normally in the quickest class too. I'm not sure. Generally in the past I've used a prototype for C1, so maybe the Corvette isn't exactly his cup of tea, but continuing the tradition and participating in some of these races.
Yeah, that's good to see. Chuck Johnson, by the way, also participated for at least one season in the Continental Series, if I'm not mistaken there, Etten?
Yeah, yeah.
Etten's not with us at the moment. That's right. Etten has just gone for a break. Sorry about that, folks. Yes, Stefan, Chuck Johnson was in there, and I think he was racing a Was he racing an MX-5 or a Mustang?
He was in the MX-5 in that series. I don't think he's done any race this season. I don't think he's even registered.
Okay. All right, but these guys are all circulating there, so I'm sure when you're in such a long race, Kevin, when you know, at this point in time, we're looking at still better than 30 minutes to run, you're probably starting to think towards the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I want to talk about right now is Jonathan Fuller is closing up on Florian Utz almost a second to 2 seconds a lap. And that gap that was about 10 seconds just a couple laps ago is already 2.2 on track right now. So, you know, Jonathan can see Florian, he's the car directly in front of himself. So that battle is on right now. And, you know, they're both going to start pushing a little bit. Although I'm concerned that Florian Utz might be actually worried about running out of fuel before the end of the race.
Okay, well, it will be good to see at least some hot battles taking place as Jonathan comes up on the car there of Oscar Salem and makes the pass. And we're going to go on board with Fuller now just to see how he travels around. There's a bunch of cars coming up behind him, probably from the C1 class. So this is going to be quite interesting here, Kevin.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But, you know, this should be pretty easy right now for the Corvettes to just power by on the straights. They should be able to do this no problem. I'm betting both of them will get by before the chicane.
Yeah, and Jonathan Fuller, as we see him being passed there, where is he now in relation to Florian Utz? So there's a couple of cars still in between them that
Yep.
they'll go by. They'll go by Florian, and then he'll have a straight run trying to get to grips with a battle with Florian. So let's hope that does happen. We're going to go on. We are on board with Jonathan Fuller at this point in time. Let's see what happens here, Kevin.
Well, we definitely saw that, Jonathan Fuller lost a little bit of time on the infield dealing with the mixed class traffic there, but has quickly gained it back, and he's now only about a second and a half behind Florian on track. You can see that gap is right there as Florian kind of yields way to give position to the Corvettes, and that means that this battle is definitely on, ready to go right now. So these guys are racing hard for position.
Yeah, and it looks like they're all kind of...
Go ahead, Jacob.
It looks like they're all getting stacked up behind Dan, so they've closed up right next to each other, and it's just up to Jonathan to make the move here.
Yeah, Jonathan, in the previous set of corners, he almost went into the back of Fuller, of Utz, so he had to pull up a little bit, and that's actually lost him a bit of time. Also getting by Dan Rash has lost him a fraction of time there, so he's fallen off a little bit, whereas he was right on the bumper there, Kevin, of Florian Utz.
Yeah, but at this rate, you got to think that Florian must be a sitting duck for Jonathan Fuller. As you can see how quickly Jonathan Fuller gained in the chicane right there. So Jonathan Fuller is definitely a lot faster under braking. So that may be all she wrote for Florian right now, as we see Florian running well on the banking.
Yeah, Florian seems to maintain speed on the straighter sections, or on the oval section, I should say. But I'll give it back to you, Kevin.
And there we go. Fuller's made the move on the inside, approaching turn one. He looks like he's going to take the position. They're both under braking heavily for this long, slowly decreasing radius corner. Fuller goes a little wide, and looks like he was looking at the over-under. But Jonathan Fuller does have the position, so that's well done. Now he's just got to maintain it and make sure he doesn't spin off in that hairpin, as he kind of got a little bit of a twitch going there.
Yes, and I've reversed the action now. I'm looking from Florian Utz's car, and he can see at this point in time a slowly disappearing Jonathan Fuller out through his windscreen, I'm afraid.
Yeah, as I kind of said, I think Florian was just a sitting duck for Fuller there, and looks like it's true. Fuller's definitely a faster car, and he's already got a second lead on Florian. So that's a bit of a disparity right there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was a little bit of excitement for us to commentate on, and I have to say that this race, I can well appreciate, Jacob, the difficulty in running these really fast, really heavy cars on such a difficult track, particularly through the infield there. But it doesn't make for a lot of exciting battles, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of battling with yourself. If you drive one of these races, you feel a sense of accomplishment at the end. And I know you talked to a lot of the guys that have finished some of these races before, and they really take pride in that. You see a lot of in the forums people using the "I survived the Targa Virginia" banner because it does feel like you survived something. You actually were able to finish. Maybe not the best for spectating, but certainly a good event to be a part of.
And a good
Absolutely,
way
I
of
fully agree with
seeing
that.
that.
Sorry, go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, I was just saying that a good way to see that people take pride in completing it is just look at Tiro Dahlberg, who got into that accident with who was that Taft Baldwin, and he's took his time in the pits, and he's back out now, rotating through the courses, 4 laps down, but he's going on.
Yeah, well, one of the guys that we haven't had a lot on camera is our leader of the C2 class, Rup Tequila, and just watching him and watching the attitude of his car there, he's still pushing quite hard there, Stefan.
Yeah, I think you would talk to Kevin about that. I was looking at the Corvettes.
Okay, I apologize. Kevin, Rup Tequila, Amjad Yaman, they've been doing their thing out there. Amjad Yaman has just quietly circulated and not put a foot wrong, as far as I remember. Kevin? Looks like we may have lost Kevin there. I'm not hearing from him right now. Ayrton, are you back with us?
Yep.
Have you been having a look at the Dan Rash Oscar Silent story? Is there even a story there anymore?
I would have to say not. The gap between those two is very large. Dan Rash just entered the front stretch while Oscar Silent only just came out of the bus stop, so that gap is very large. But one of the closer gaps, still quite large though, is Randolph Chenoweth and JD Baumgartner. I think Baumgartner is trying to catch him down, and he has about 25 minutes to do it, so not sure if he has enough time to do it, and the gap is still pretty large.
Yeah, I know JD's, he's obviously been quick throughout the race, and without that pit stop, he would definitely be battling for the lead, so I think it's very realistic that he might be able to catch Randolph here in the closing stages.
You know,
All right.
Richard, something that we haven't talked about yet today, and I don't mean to interject in here, but the fatigue level of these drivers. These guys have been out here for over an hour and a half now. We've all ran hour and a half long races, but they've still got a little less than 30 minutes to go in here, and I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing the fatigue level kind of rise on some of these drivers.
Well, you're right there, Rudy. Jacob actually alluded to that. It's a tough race. It's a long race. And I know from my personal experience in running 90-minute races, and I did the Pocono IndyCar race, which was a very long race as well, that when you're getting into that last stint, you're really starting to feel that you're battling yourself, as Jacob said, more than anyone else.
Exactly, yes.
At this track, you do get some decent breaks on the straightaways here. So there is that, but the infield section is very demanding, and especially these long braking zones, specifically turn 1 and the little flip-flop chicane on the backstretch can become very difficult and very easy to outbrake yourself.
Yeah, if we have a look at Noya Nagai, for instance, right? If I have a look at his lap times, we can see that he started off with doing laps of around 124, and then it got slowly faster into the 122s. He's not far off those times. In fact, he's still doing 122s at this point, hour and a half into the race. So as the leader, he has done pretty well there, Jacob.
Yeah, well, sometimes backing off can almost hurt yourself. There's a certain threshold where you feel comfortable with the car, but if you start going too slow, you might begin braking at different points and upsetting the car in a way you're not used to, which can even lead to a mistake. So sometimes you kind of have to find the limit where it's still easy enough to drive where you can finish, but it's quick enough that you're used to the speed you're taking.
Yeah, that's a good point. So he's doing it pretty easily. Satoru Ono is another guy who's pretty much stayed out of trouble. I don't think he's had any big incidents. And he's got a comfortable second position, although it's blown out. At one stage it was around 8 or 9 seconds. We're now looking at 12, almost 13 seconds. So he's lost a little time to Neuer. But I would say that he would be very satisfied by the end of this race because he's not only finished, he's finished in second place and he's done it fairly well without too many incidents. Would you say, Stefan?
Yeah, but he shouldn't be gunning himself too sure of that second place because Richard Shoughton is only about 3-4 seconds back, and that's something we need to keep an eye on here this last part of the race.
Actually, you're right. I'm looking at, they're both running cars which have similar coloring. So I'm actually mixing them up, but you're right, there's only 4 seconds of difference as we see Ono in front just passing a few slower cars. But Richard Schouteren, you're right, he's if he charges hard enough, he may well be able to catch up. So we will keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, going back to the C3 class, anything happening there, Ayrton?
No, the gap is still really large, but JD Baumgartner cut off half a second the previous lap on Randolph Chenoweth, so he is slowly closing him in.
All right, and then we'll take a wrap-up of the C2 class with Kevin, and then we might consider taking another break. Kevin?
Well, Rupe Turkla is still
we have a
spin
right there.
And that was a big slide from Richard Schouteren, who managed to keep it out of the wall. Wow. Stephanie, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, he just got his left set of wheels out into the grass and just spun around. No damage, but he's lost touch with Ono, so Ono can count himself lucky there.
And
that was Kevin.
That was a pretty awesome action shot from onboard Rupe, who managed to keep from hitting Richard there. But yeah, Rupe has got a 70-second lead over Amjad Yaman, who's second in class, and then Jonathan Fuller is our third place car in the class. And Florian Utz is now about 5 seconds behind Jonathan Fuller. So it's all about Rupe right now. But he's still pushing hard. Last lap, I watched him actually hit the cones on the access road as he tried to stay out of one Corvette's way and lap another Ford GT at the same time. So Rupe still, not being super conservative right now.
Yeah, and I know one other thing we might want to take a look at, and some people have been mentioning as well, is Mario Beaudry is catching John Hill at a pretty decent rate, actually, and we might see them battle it out in the C1 class for a top 5 before the end is here.
All right, well, folks, we are going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with the final stages of this race and bring it all to you live on the Global Sim Racing channel. And welcome back, folks, to the Targa Long Pond 120, where we are currently watching Mario Baudry making and attacking or getting very close to the guy in front of him, who is...
Actually,
it?
just
Flo?
got past it. Just got past.
He's passed him already. Back to you, Stefan.
Going into turn one, and he just dove in on the inside and took the position out of John Hill.
All right, so looks like we didn't catch that action on the cameras. We came back a few seconds too late, but nonetheless, he has now moved up a position, and he is in first, second, third, fourth place overall, and also in fourth place in his class. So that's very good from Mario Baudry there. John Hill still circulating behind him. Let's see, he's not that far away, so it might be that we might see that battle resume a little bit there. Sorry guys, I'm just catching up with what's going on here. At the moment, when we look at the other class with Rube Tequila and Amjad Yaman in second place, not much happening there. And even in our C3 class, Dan Ayrton seems to be doing it pretty easily now.
Yeah, he seems to be running away with it, but a thing that did occur to me is that since JD Baumgartner did have to do an extra pit stop to get fuel, I'm wondering if any of the other drivers might be short on fuel, so we might see near the closing laps of the race some drivers running out.
Yeah, and I know the fuel to do a two-stop is close, so what might have happened to JD was in the beginning, stopping a little too early made it impossible for him to just make one more stop.
Yeah, and we might take an opportunity to have a look at some of the drivers that we haven't shown for a while. Randolph Chanuth in his Mustang, he's been circulating all race. Seemed like he wasn't involved in any troubles, and he's got a good third position in class behind Oscar and Dan at the moment. So all happening pretty easily as the laps run down now. We have something like 9-11 minutes to run in this race, and normally we see that towards the end of a race that, you know, there always lots of action where people are trying to make up positions, but doesn't look like that's going to be the case here today, Jacob.
Yeah, well, it doesn't look like anybody's directly behind anybody else to make any passes, but as we've been seeing, people have been throwing the cars off the track here. It's just a little bit of time left, so drivers can get anxious thinking they're close to the end and give it all up here in just a few laps. We did have, during a previous race, a leader in class, Dylan Sharman. Actually, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but spin off just with a couple laps to go and was luckily had a big enough lead to be able to bring it back, but had a very damaged car for the last couple laps.
Yeah, we are familiar with Dylan Sharman in various types of vehicles. A very handy driver as well. But at this point in time, we'll... Sorry, go ahead.
That was Niccolo Roncelli had a big spin coming back onto the banking right there. Looks like he got a little bit too aggressive on the power and just looped it right around.
Yeah, Nicola Roncelli had some early moments, or some moments in the early part of the race, but he came back on after getting some repairs to his car, I believe, and then he's been circulating pretty well, and that kind of accentuates what Jacob was just saying about getting towards the end of the race and thinking more about finishing rather than what you're doing as you're circulating.
And I do want to point out that that was directly in front of the C2 leader, Rupe Turkla, who has once again watched a Corvette go a little bit sideways in front of him. So Rupe, you know, might be feeling a little blessed or a little cursed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we had just a few laps earlier going into the final chicane there. Rupe went 3 wide while he was passing one of the slower Ford GT cars, had Taro Dahlberg in the C1 throw it up the inside as well. So we had a 3 wide going into the final chicane, which definitely isn't what he was looking for in the final few laps.
Well, as they were coming off the banking, we had Florian Jutz, who was behind Rube Tequila. he came very, very close to touching him there as well. So as we see Florian right now just having some difficulty coming back onto the banking, but now he's able to put the power down. So, but he was very, very close to Rupe in that coming off the banking there. So that could have been nasty for Rupe.
Yeah, so just a few laps to go. It's definitely something you want to avoid. And here, actually, one of the reasons this track is an excellent roval is because the entry and exit to the banking isn't very severe. You kind of hardly notice it actually in the car. So it's not like some of the tracks where you have to all of a sudden go up a steep incline and it kind of upsets the car. It's very smooth here.
Okay. Well, Director, I want to have a look at a driver that we have not even mentioned today in this race at all, and that's Jiri Mojak. Now, Jiri's got a nice-looking car there, some dark colors. We haven't seen much of him at all. He's listed about 6 laps down on the leader, but once again, he's circulating without any problems at this point in time. And he's looking to finish and to say that he completed the Targa Long Pond.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. As you said, so he's, I believe, 3 laps down from his class leader, Rupe Turkle, and he's about 1 or 2 laps. I'm a little confused behind, 1 lap behind Chuck Johnson, who's the GT in front of him. But it sounds like actually there may be some Corvette action going on, so we should check that out.
Yeah, that was Nicolo. He is on again, so he's really struggling to finish this race. And it was actually very close to get the run down by, I think, was some of the GT cars.
Yes,
man.
well, it's you know, we've said it all before, getting close to the end of the race, that people are really quite tired and probably not concentrating at the same level that they were towards the beginning of the race. And I'm betting that a lot of them are starting to think, when is this race going to finish? Because it's been a long race. 2 hours is a long, long time to be concentrating and keeping your car on what is a fairly difficult track to negotiate. As we see our friend Jiri Mojak really struggling to get back onto the banking there, nearly spun the car, but he manages to do that successfully, and he's back out on the banking and circulating around for another lap. So let's call the standings starting from the top, and we'll go to you, Stefan.
Yeah, and as has been the case for all of the race, it's Noe Nagai who's leading, and Satoru Ono is back about 20 seconds. Richard Sheridan in 3rd, Yuri Butuk in 4th, Mario Bedreau in 5th, and John G. Ho in 6th. And then comes the GT class.
And Kevin, give us the rundown on the GT class.
Well, we still have Rupe Turkle with that large lead. Amjad Yaman and Jonathan Fuller round out the podium. Florian Utz, Chuck Johnson, and Yuri Mojak are the final runners, with Taft Baldwin, John Paquin, and Valerio Chieti all having retired.
Okay, and Ayrton, the C3 class, the Mustangs.
Yeah, in the C3 class, we have Dan Rash leading with Oscar Salin in 2nd, Randolph Cheneth in 3rd, and J.D. Baumgartner in 4th, and Patrick Bieri and Jimmy Eiflin have retired.
And we're getting information that Chuck Johnson is catching Utes, so we might go to Chuck and see what's transpiring there, Kevin.
Yeah, you called it right there. Chuck Johnson is all over the back of Florian Utz, so I'm not entirely sure how that happened, to be honest, since there was a bit of a gap. But that is, you can see it's less than a second on track live, and you know, but I'm not sure if Chuck Johnson actually has the speed to reel in Florian.
Well, he's certainly making a good fist of it at the moment. He, you know, there's once you can see the driver ahead of you, that kind of spurs you on to drive faster and faster as he closes right up, Kevin.
Yeah, he's definitely stronger under braking for the chicane, so let's see what happens, as he looks like he should be able to catch the draft here onto the main straight. And I'm showing that the live timing right now, it's only 0.4 seconds between the two of them. So if Chuck Johnson's that good under brakes for T1 like he was under the chicane, he might be able to really close up right here.
Well, they're coming into the chicane as we speak. He's right on the back bumper now of Utes. So as they come out back onto the banking once again. But Utes gets a pretty good exit there, Kevin.
Yeah, you're right about that. Sorry about that. I was looking at some past action, but yeah. So Chuck Johnson is still holding strong, only a third of, or to between a third and a half a second behind Florian Utes right now. So this is a good battle brewing up right here. I think Florian's responded a little bit over the last lap, but Chuck, I think maybe he wants us pretty good right now.
Well, Chuck seems to go in a little deeper on the braking as they enter the corners, but it seems that Utes exits a little better than he does, as you can see right there. But Chuck Johnson isn't giving up, so this could be where the action is in the closing laps. We can't have much more than a couple of laps left, Jacob, on this race.
Yeah, I think we got about 5 minutes to go, so it should just be maybe 3 laps.
Yeah. And back to this battle, Kevin, with Chuck Johnson, as we see once again, Florian gets a really good exit and extends his lead by a little bit, and Chuck has it all to do to catch up to him again before they enter the next section, which is the chicane.
Yeah, and I was wondering if the Mustang of Randolph Cheneth was going to cause a problem under braking for the chicane, but they were able to clear him long before that ever became an issue. And yeah, you can see once again Chuck Johnson just super close under braking, and he's gained about a half second just under braking right there. So Chuck Johnson needs to figure out a way to stay a little closer to Florian through the infield, and I bet you he can get it done into the chicane, no problem.
Well, he's certainly closer on that exit than he was from previous exits from corners. So I'm going to let you call it because he's right on the back of him right now.
Yeah, and we see Chuck Johnson take a look on the inside, but he decides not to go for it. Comes up a little bit easy. But they've got the Corvette of, who is that? That's Nicolo Roncelli right behind them. So this might get a little bit interesting. I'm not sure if Chuck Johnson's going to be able to make the move this time by into the chicane, as he's now about a second behind Florian Utes. So kind of giving up a little bit in turn one has really cost him this time.
Yeah, he did back off a fair bit coming into turn one there, but he's looks like he's cranked it up again, and he's getting closer once again to use as he's right on the bumper. They come back onto the banking. We look behind them to Nicolo Roccelli, who should now comfortably pass both of these guys before they get to the chicane. So once he's passed, then the battle will be on once again, Kevin.
Yeah, well, we're not entirely sure. Yep, there goes Nicolo, and that is the yellow Mustang of Oscar Salin in front of everybody. As Florian Utes gets a little loose under braking, and that's allowed Chuck Johnson to get right up on top of him once again. So this battle is still going to go on.
Yes, and Chuck Johnson takes the position there, Kevin.
Yeah, well, this is Jake, but I saw Florian there flash his brakes, so it's looking like he's letting Chuck pass. Maybe he just doesn't want to deal with the pressure in the few final laps and just wants to finish.
And Jacob, I think actually maybe Florian actually cut the chicane there. He may be serving a penalty.
That could also be true. I don't know how deep to the inside he got.
Yeah, it definitely looked to me like he was all 4 tires off on the grass, but he hasn't lost a whole lot of track time, so I'm not entirely sure about that penalty.
Well, we know that he's pretty good on the exits of the corners, so let's see if he can brake a little bit later and come out and catch Chuck Johnson. Certainly this is the battle to be watching right now, as we see Chuck Johnson coming up against Mustangs, and I believe that's Dan Rash right in front of him there. He goes to the inside, makes the pass. What is Florian Utes going to do, Kevin?
Florian also went low, and he should comfortably get around Dan Rash. And you see that is the overall leader of Noya Nagai, also lapping these guys at the same time. So a lot of action right here on track.
And he's now got he's got Chuck Johnson back in his sights, as Chuck Johnson had to give way for the leader of the race, and that may have slowed him up as he spins, and Florian takes the position, Kevin.
Oh man, there's a lot going on. So you may have seen in the corner of your screen Nicolo Roncelli going deep under braking for the chicane, and I wonder if maybe Chuck just got a little confused seeing a slow Corvette there slowing for the chicane. But boy, now Chuck's going to have to do this all over again if he wants that position. And we just cleared 2 minutes left in the race.
Yeah, that was he nearly spun the car there. He was struggling to get it straightened out. but now he's back on track again for trying to take that position back, which he lost in the previous lap. So let's see what happens here. Kevin, I'll let you stick with this.
Absolutely. So there can only be about 2 laps left. I think it'll be white flag next time by. So yeah, Chuck doesn't have a lot of opportunities left if he wants to get around Florian Oots, and he's going to need to make that happen. But he's very, very close as they're approaching the exit of the infield, the last hairpin out, and this is where we see Chuck Johnson start to really reel in Florian Oots over the last few laps. So let's see what he can do, as he's definitely got a nice little draft under the banking. They're around the turn 2 oval there. Or excuse me, I believe that's a turn 3 oval. And will Chuck Johnson make a move? I think he might be a little too far back this time by. So, you know, I'm not sure if he's got the guts to try and make it into turn 1, but he's definitely running out of track space right now. As I want to check in on the C3 battles.
Yes, well, let's go to the C3 and find out what's happening, because Chuck Johnson has fallen back. Florian Yutz has responded, exiting really well out of the chicane there, and he's managed to pull a little gap on Chuck. So what's happening in the C3 class, Ayrton?
Well, Dan still has quite a large lead, but his last few laps have been very slow, almost a second or two off the pace. So I think he might be saving fuel, and that has caused him to really drop in pace and allowed Oscar Salin to start to close in on him.
Well, I think Jacob mentioned the fact that these people, if they're on 2 stops, they might well be having to conserve fuel at the end, because they
Actually,
might not have. I
Dan
believe
looks
that
like he's out of fuel right now. He's going very slow, and it looks like Oscar Salin is catching up like at a rapid speed.
Yeah, Oscar's catching up on Dan, and I just saw Satoru Ono, second place in C1, go into the pits. So definitely fuel becoming a factor here in the final laps. Maybe the race going an extra lap than was predicted.
And we are on the white flag, so this is the last time by for everybody right now. And there goes Chuck Johnson, past Florian Oots.
Dan is definitely struggling. Go ahead, Kevin.
Chuck Johnson just drove straight past Florian Oots, who's very, very slow under the chicane. Florian Oots may have run out of fuel as well.
Oh dear, he's straight lined the through the chicane there by the looks of it. So it's come to a stop, Kevin.
And there we go. Noya Nagai has won the race. He just flew past the checker flag right there. Sorry. With all the guys running out of fuel right now, we're kind of a little late on the call, but what an excellent run from the Corvette driver.
We have Dan Rash absolutely crawling down the back straightaway, definitely running out of fuel. Not sure if he'll actually make the line or not. I expect him to cut the chicane here.
All right, we'll watch Dan Rash try and finish the race, but it never fails, does it, Kevin? There's always some drama at the end of a race.
Yeah, that's we're a little surprised there by the number of people who quickly ran out of fuel on this track. What seemed to be a lot of sealed positions suddenly very open.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Oscar Salin wins the race in class from Dan Rash. Where is JD Baumgartner, Ayrton?
Yeah, J.D. Baumgartner is sitting in third, but he, I think, also ran out of fuel, and he's running at a very slow pace around the track. But Randolph Chenoweth does not seem to be in this car at the moment, so I think he might have might have gotten disconnected, or he actually just exited his car.
And actually, J.D. Baumgartner is also going very, very slow on the track. So it looks like for the Mustang, Oscar Salin taking that pit stop strategy he did worked out for him very well.
Yeah, it seems to me that, you know, it's the last lap. You think that you've got it all sewn up, and all of a sudden you got no fuel left. It's happened so many times. How many times, Kevin, haven't we seen guys run out of fuel on the last lap?
Too many times.
And it looks like JD is going to actually beat Dan Rash to the line just because of the fuel situation.
Well, Dan can't make it to the line. He is on pit road at the moment, trying to get every inch he can, and he's not going to get it. He has officially stopped just about now, and he's short of the line by several hundred meters. Well, folks, there's some drama right at the end there, so we're going to go through our commentators for each class. and you can call the standings as it was over the line. So starting with you, Stefan.
Yeah, Nagai truly dominated this race and took a very secure first place. And we just briefly saw that Satoru had to make a splash and dash, and that actually hunted him down to third place. And Richard Scouten just got the second place on the last lap. So very pleased with that. We took in the fourth, Mario Bertre in fifth, John G. Hill in sixth, and then Theo Dahlberg 5 laps down in seventh.
And did Niccolo Roccelli, did he finish?
Oh yeah, he's down there in the 8th place. That's the final running Mustang. Corvette.
All right, so in the Ford GT class, Kevin, what were the final standings?
Well, as I kind of predicted, Rupe Turkala did take it home with the win, almost a lap in front of Amjad Yaman. Final podium spot was Jonathan Fuller. Chuck Johnson did get the 4th position as indeed Florian Utz ran out of fuel. Yuri Marjak was the final finisher in 6th, and then 7th was Taft Baldwin, John Paquin 8th, and Valerie Chieti was the final Ford GT.
And all the drama that we saw in the C3 Mustang class, Ayrton, what were the final standings there?
Well, Oscar Salmon managed to win it, and then J.D. Baumgartner in 2nd, Dan Rash in 3rd, Randolph Chenov in 4th, and then Patrick Pieri, Jim Eifling were retirements.
All right. Well, guys, that is the race. 2 hours of the Targa Long Pond 120 here at Pocono Raceway International. We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to line up some interviews and chat to the drivers, at least the ones who won, if we can get them into the booth. Over to you, Director. Welcome back to the broadcast of the Targa Long Pond 120 here at Pocono Raceway International. The race has been done. We have given you the final standings, and what we want to do now is have a quick chat to Jacob and just get his thoughts on the race as he was viewing it from the broadcast booth. Jacob?
Yeah, I thought it was a very good race. It was clean. Everybody that was participating did a really good job staying out of trouble, and and ended up being really exciting towards the end there with the fuel strategy. That's how I was hoping it would end up.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jacob, for being available and coming into the booth with us. Before we leave, we would like to make a mention of a broadcast that's coming up in about 20 minutes time from now, and this will be on the Global Sim Racing Channel live. A good friend of ours, Sam McAleer, will be hosting a charity race in the MX-5s at Road America, and we will be broadcasting this to you live. Be sure to tune in. It will be some great racing, and it's for a great cause. The cause is the York Hill Children's Hospital Endurance Race, and it will take place, as I said, in about 20 minutes' time. We would like to thank the organizers of this race, Jacob Desmarais, and also we would like to thank iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and Ava Media for help making this broadcast possible. Thanks also to everyone who was a part of the GSR team today. If you would like to see more of our work, find us at www.globalsimracingchannel.com. You can follow us on Twitter at GSR Channel, and you can like us on our Facebook page at Global Sim Racing Channel. A special thanks must also go to the people who provide music for us. That's Eric Ekholm, and also Dexter Britton. Eric Ekholm's music can be heard not only here on GSR TV, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you do like the music, tell him where you heard it at ericekholm.com. We thank Dexter Britton, who provides us with some recognizable music that we use in our introductions, and he has made lots of great music for people like NASA, TED Talks, and McLaren. You can listen or buy his music at dexterbritton.co.uk. So we will see you guys shortly for our next broadcast, and we hope that you will join us. Until race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.